I just want to come in here real quick and share some Steven Wilson Jr. You are the man, Steven. If you ever see this, dude, I love your music. I love your sound. And I love you even more now after watching your episode with Theo Vaughn and learning about your faith background. That's awesome you shared that. It's so good to have somebody in this that's in country music or in this just in the public eye that's a Christian and is willing to share some of that and share, he shares some knowledge on the Bible. He shares some knowledge about, like I said, his background and his kind of obviously influences his writing and his sound. He does a phenomenal job, and I would differ. I was really curious, Stephen. I was very curious to hear your take on evolution because I know he's very science oriented. He's got a scientific background. Obviously, being a biblical cosmologist, I would differ majorly, I'm sure, on his thoughts on that. But they got ready to dive into it. He got ready to stink and dive into it, and they took a break because he had to pee. And then they come back and they didn't talk about it. So I'm like, gosh darn it! I wanted your take, Stephen. I'm hoping YouTube doesn't. I'm obviously I'm clipping some videos from the podcast, and I don't want YouTube to take them down. But I just really appreciated you sharing even just that small part, that small aspect, and even Theo himself was talking about how he's in a Bible class now. He's doing some Bible studies, so that's incredible. We all know Theo and his kind of his authenticity and his willingness to share openly just his faults, his mistakes, and that I'm it's very encouraging to see that. And I think it's why he gets so much attention and traction as far as his followers, because we need that. We need more of that. And when you watch this podcast, you can see that. I really like seeing guys that, just like Stephen, that you sense this humility in them, you sense this discernment in them, and it's just it's really neat to watch some of that, because again, when you're kind of in tune with that, you notice it and you can see it in other people, and Stephen just really adds to his character as a person. I don't know him obviously, but it's some of these things when you watch these interviews of people, you can tell a lot. You can tell a lot about a person. So, Stephen, I really appreciate you sharing some messages on the gospel, and I thought that was really neat. I also I'm gonna clip this into as well. His song Gary, which is incredible. I don't know why I haven't heard that, but it was just so friggin' awesome, because I'm like, it rings so true. I've got an Uncle Gary that passed away a couple of years ago. And I'm like, you read those lyrics, you listen to those lyrics, I'm like, that's exactly that Gary. I mean, maybe not exactly. I'm sure there's some verses, in there that, is not exactly, describes my uncle, but there's a lot that does. Talks about a guy that can fix anything, a guy that has faith in God, a guy that doesn't gamble. And I just thought it was just so funny, because I'm like, it's amazing how art and music can touch you and inspire you, and gives you this just a way to relate, a way to connect. And I thought that, it's just so funny, because it's a song that, people can connect to. And it just makes, it just really reaffirms some things with me. And I'm like, so anyways, we're going to clip that in here at the end, because it's just a phenomenal job. He also did play Grief Is Only Love, which, listen, Stephen, you're amazing. You do an awesome job, and keep it up, dude. Like I'm so glad I'm so happy when people get their dues. Maybe not, and not even that you want it. Like, not that you want to be recognized or noticed in that public sense of being in the public, but when somebody's art or somebody's creation, like you created something that people connect with, and that's phenomenal. Like that's why I love this. Life is so cool, right? And this is not a podcast, so I'm not here to expand so much on this, but it's just, I love seeing people's forms of art and creativity. And Steven's sound is so unique, and his writing, and now learning more about him, learning more about his background, really just adds so much more to that art, So anyways, enjoy the clips here, and hopefully YouTube doesn't strike it or take it down. But and enjoy the music as well. So have a good night.
Writing, man. Speaking
well,
of that,
you. I grew up very religious. That's why I talk about. I grew up in a Pentecostal Nazarene kind of church, a lot of holy rolling, and I read a lot of the Bible.
Jesus.
Yep.
Why did Saul not want him to testify him? Did he not believe him, or did he just not want him sharing the truth?
Well, Saul at the time, this is pre-Paul, because Saul turned into Paul once he saw Christ, like the Spirit of Christ appeared before him, and that's when he became Paul. But at that point, Saul was very much a figure of the Jewish religion. Like he was a very high-ranking Jewish official. So he was kind of, like a high-ranking individual. And so he was really, in his mind at that time, probably just doing his job,
right?
Not really knowing why he was doing it. But then he had a very much a come to Jesus moment, no pun intended. And that's when he became Paul. And he wrote literally probably 2/3 of the New Testament, or at least a lot of it. Half of it at least.
This says here, it says, and we use Perplexity AI, and it says, before his conversion, Saul was a zealous Pharisaic Jew.
Yeah, he's a Pharisee.
Pharisee was a zealous Pharisee who believed followers of Jesus were dangerous heretics. So from his perspective, Stephen's preaching against their rejection of Jesus and his criticism of their misuse of the temple was blasphemous and deserved death under the understanding of the law. That zeal led him to participate by giving approval and overseeing the execution, which he later remembered with deep sorrow when he became the Apostle Paul. Wow.
Yeah.
Gosh, dude, that's got to be a lot to carry, because if Stephen was the first Christian martyr and you had him stoned because your faith wasn't there yet, and then to look back through a different perspective.
Not much longer after that for him to be like, oh, now I'm preaching the same gospel without rocks being thrown at me. And now that has to be quite the thing to come to terms with. And I think that's what motivated him to write, so many epistles of the New Testament, and became such a huge figure of the New Testament. There's a lot of books that they believe were written by Paul, like the book of Hebrews. There's like no author, but they believe even he wrote like books that nobody has any author to. Like they can identify his style of writing and be like, it had to be Paul.
Wow.
Thank you, sir. 1, 2, 3, 4. Gary these days been lying in his bed, man, working on the same car going on a decade. Scribbles on junk mail, don't draw attention. I never really noticed, but now that I mention it, there ain't a lot of boys named Gary these days, born with the cigarette glued to their face, fixing about anything a hammer can handle, saving all the money cause a Gary don't gamble. Ain't a lot of girls gonna buy Debbie anymore, but they got the same nicotine pouring out their pores. Time leaves town, but the minute hand stays. There ain't a lot of boys named Gary these days. Gary these days been worried about the bad news. There ain't a lot of teenagers filling up the church pews, no. Burning bush lights, don't talk to his brother. The people even still say grace before supper. There ain't a lot of boys named Gary these days, born with a cigarette glued to their face, fixing about anything a hammer can handle, saving all the money cause a Gary don't gamble. Ain't a lot of girls going by Debbie anymore, but they got the same nicotine pouring out their pores. Time leaves town, but the minute hand stays. There ain't a lot of boys named Gary these days. Every now and then gets a damn thing running, takes it out for a spin. First
suspicion with the light out on the front porch. Hard medication poured down where the drain pours. He holds his left arm while his parakeet prays. Has anybody seen much of Gary these days? Has anybody seen much of Gary these days?